Hey fellow Vault Dwellers, it's Angry Turtle, and today, another episode of Perkopedia, this time Perception. As well, my apologies for one mistake. I somehow forgot to give you a value for the strong back. I will not make this mistake today, and I will give you the value for the strong back as well after awareness. So I want to use this perk card for a quick explanation for value curves that currently those perks are using. In other words, you can see it as diminishing returns, as they do not list exact value per perception for the increase because it's not linear. How they usually work, they very similar. Like all the curves are very similar. If you understand one, you understand about all of them. Therefore, the value per perception is going up quickly up until around 30 on the special. So 30 perception will give you really good value. In case of awareness, that will be 30% increase to VATS accuracy at 30 perception. And it can go higher to theoretical max at 100 perception, but it's going slowly from that point. First 30 points give you 30%, then maxing it out with not even possible value, but let's say you can achieve 100 perception, it will be 50%. So for additional 70 points of special, we're getting only 20%. So yeah, 30 is when the diminishing return starts. You will get about half of that at 12 on your special, in this case perception. So 12 perception plus minus 12 perception, they not exactly the same curve, so it can be 11, 12, 13. Depend on the starting point for those cards, but let's say 15% at 12 perception. So that's what's important to know. Only one value is really important. You need to know the value at 30 on the special. That's the key value. That's the best point to judge the pair card. It's achievable, and that's how you judge it. So in case of awareness, 30% increase to VATS accuracy. In case of strong back, at 30 strength, it will be 65 carry weight. And can max out at 100, but you will not really get 100 strength. So that's out of the way. I hope it's helpful how those curves work. How good is awareness and how it actually works? What does it mean that I'm getting 30% to my VATS accuracy? It's awesome card when you need to top up your VATS accuracy. It's absolutely useless if your VATS accuracy is on the bottom, on the floor, I would say. If your VATS accuracy is 10%, additional 30% bonus would only make it 13% because it's counted from the value you already have. But if your VATS accuracy is 70%, which is not bad but not perfect, you will still miss 1 in 3 shots on average. Adding this card changes it to 91%, so that's huge improvement. For VATS focus builds, that's usually the case. With most weapons, you can achieve around 60, 70, 80% VATS accuracy. This card is a top-up, putting it above 90%, so very good. I would not say S tier. You can skip it sometimes depending on your build, but definitely for VATS build, incredibly powerful card. So we are putting it under A tier for VATS builds. Bow before me. Your bows and crossbows ignore 40% armor and have a 10% chance to stagger. Chance to stagger not very critical, but 40% armor penetration for bow builds, awesome. I would, before the last patches, I would say it's not very important, but as of today, bows are incredibly powerful, and Green Arrow build can dominate on events and in adventure mode everywhere, including on the boss fights, can contribute quite a bit. So bows are good. Therefore, I'm putting this one again in tier A, as bows are great. It's a time of a bow. I don't know yet how many cards will end up in A. I'm afraid it may be a lot, so I will make those slightly smaller. More cards will fit in this A tier. Perception is a good stat to have. Eye of the Hunter. So again, this one, fixed value and ghoul only. 30% accuracy in VATS from a very long distance. They specify a very long distance. If I'm not mistaken, from my guesstimation, I don't have exact number that I mind what very long distance means, but it looks like about 200 TD units. And distance, yeah, TD units are on the weapon cards, if you wonder. I have a whole video explaining it. It's not as simple as it's supposed to be, I know. That's why I have full video for the ranges on weapons. So very long distance is required to use this card. The value, the same as awareness, will give you with high perception. It's good, can be used, but more expensive than awareness. 3 points and limitations to it. So not as useful as awareness, in my opinion. It's ending up in tier B. Good. Can be useful on some particular builds. Not a must-have for sure. Fast Fighter. Gain 50% of your bonus movement speed as reload speed. Sounds good. The problem is, you will be forced to add more and more cards that increases your movement speed, even though the total movement speed bonus that will affect your movement speed in-game is capped at 20%. So Speed Demon Mutation alone gives you that. After that, if you'll be adding movement speed cards, they will not affect your movement speed, but the bonus will be recorded and the bonus will be used for calculation on this card. So let's say you boost your movement speed to 150%. You will still move with the speed of 120%, but the 50% will be used to give you 25% bonus to your reload speed. Is it worth it? No. Quick answer is no, unless you have edge case scenario that you are boosting your reload speed for some reason as much as it's possible and you are sacrificing all other precious cards to achieve faster reload. It may happen, but it's unlikely. I was trying to utilize this card, even when it was stronger, it was nerfed. Previously it was total movement speed used for a bonus. I'm putting it on the bottom. It's not to be used. It takes precious space, giving almost nothing in return. Edge case scenario, maybe, but I am putting it in the bin. Do not recommend using. Overall. Fortune Finder. You hear directional audio when in range of a cap stash. Used to be quite handy for cap stash runs. There are better ways to earn caps, as perks that boost cap stashes boost as well caps from enemies, and there is even more ways to earn caps coming in form of legendary effect on weapon that will increase caps from kills. Therefore, this one is being officially retired. Outside of using it just to figure out what the cap stashes are out of curiosity, there is no practical use case for Fortune Finder. Another one bites the dust. Glow Sight. 60% damage to glowing enemies, and sounds awesome. The problem is, not so many enemies is actually classified as glowing. They need to be classified as glowing. Sometimes they look glowing, but they do not have a glowing tag, and this perk will not work. So no. 3 points that the cost. Answer is no. Unless you are preparing for specific fight with particular glowing enemies. Outside of that, it's no. But maybe this fight will exist in the future, so I will give it C. There may exist a situation when you'll use it. Very unlikely as it is, it may exist at some point. The bonus is good, the use case is not. Glowing Hunter. Traces of glowing blood now have a 50% chance to appear on animal corpses. It's ghoul only. Who's is it for? What are you gonna do with this glowing blood? It's not for the feral ghouls, as glowing blood satisfies feral, so that's not for melee feral ghoul. For regular ghoul, you have so many camps that you can use to satisfy feral. What are you doing with those glowing blood packs? No idea, honestly. I have no idea about the use case. Maybe I'm wrong. I was testing this card, using it, trying to find a use case. I did not found one. So it's going to the bin with other cards. Not to be messed with. No use case. Green Thumb. Reap twice as much when harvesting flora. And this is surprisingly important whenever you need flowers for damage boosting tea, whenever you need veggies if you are a herbivore, whenever you need to craft a rare camp that requires some rare veggies that are not plentiful and cannot be planted at your camp. This will double whatever you get. You can use magazine to double again. So yeah, a really good perk for this use case. Where should I put it? It's not a combat use case, but very important, can give you a combat buff. I'm putting it on the very top. It costs only 1 point and cannot be replaced with anything else. You may disagree with it, but that's a utility perk that occasionally I use, and I cannot imagine playing without owning it eventually. So I'm putting it on top. When it's needed, it's really needed. Your explosive detonate with twice the radius, that's Grenadier. Awesome for launcher builds. Huge area of effect if it's needed. For events or something else, affects Tesla cannon that can punch through walls. Nuka grenades that can punch through walls. Regular explosive. Downside, there is a downside to this card. You will hit yourself much more often, as your own weapons will absolutely harm you and kill you. So there is a downside to it, but very powerful for particular builds. I would put it a strong A tier. When you need it, it cannot be replaced with anything else, and makes some builds very powerful. Oh, as well, almost forgot, affects the arc bounce range on Tesla rifle. So that's important to know too. Tesla rifle needs it. Ground Pounder. Your small guns reloads 30% faster and have 30% more hip fire accuracy. Unlike Fast Fighter, this one is good, as long as you are using a small gun. What are small guns? Everything that's not a heavy gun, basically. That's a quick classification. So shotguns, rifles, pistols fall under small gun category. 30% increase to reload speed and hip fire accuracy. Very handy. There is one problem with it. No room under perception, as there are perks above it that are needed even more for most weapons. And that's the only reason that I am putting it under B. Just because there is so many good perks that are must-have and will be S or A tier, Ground Pounder is going to be B+, I would say. It's almost, if not so many good perks, it would make it A. Hat Trick. Arrows and throwing weapons bounce towards 3 additional targets, dealing 70% damage. It changes regular bows into absolute domination in events and group scenario. Super powerful. We did entire raid as a green arrow, and Hat Trick was one of the most important cards that allowed to do that. So for the bow build, not for everyone, but for everyone who wants to play bows, it's awesome and must have. Throwing weapons, I should mention here this as those are on the card, usually do not correctly work with that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, because they have special rules, and quite often they bounce into space, or I don't know where. They bounce into nowhere and do not hit any additional targets. The range on the bounces is huge. They tend to fly like 200-300 TD units, so enemies can be really spread out, and arrows can still bounce to them and will carry all the effects like explosion and so on. So absolutely amazing for Archer build, and Archer is really good, so I'm giving it S tier. It is better than it was ever before. So yes, surprisingly, hat trick on the very top. Long shot. Your scoped weapons have 30% more range and accuracy when aiming. Good one. 1 point for snipers. It is edge case scenario. Is it snipers only? And it must be a scope on a weapon. Without a scope, it will not work. You must have a scope on a weapon. It works. It's very cheap. 1 point. Again, so many other perks that you need to have. Just to don't overload 8 here, I'm giving it B+. So it is handy. Very handy. But competition is ruthless from Perception perks. Master Archer. Arrows and thrown melee weapons pierce targets. Unlike Hat Trick, this is not as useful. There will be a use case when you will have it and you will send arrow through like 2 or 3 enemies in a line. But it will happen sometimes, unlike Hat Trick, which will happen almost always. Therefore, this one is significantly weaker. Still useful, can still run it on a bow build, but it's much weaker. Putting it under B, but it's like B-, not B+ like others. That would be like B-. Night Eyes. Gain night vision while sneaking. What it does, when you crouch, the screen will get a little bit brighter and less colorful. I was using it, testing it a lot actually, and I cannot find any improvement to my vision and me being able to notice enemies and so on. Looks a little bit different. Washed out and brighter? I would say no. No, absolutely I don't see any use case. If that would be a real night vision, maybe, but it just changes it to less colorful, more like towards black and white and slightly brighter. Like if you would increase the brightness on the screen. It's not really improving your vision. Night Person. Gain free intelligence, free perception between the hours of 6 and 6 a.m. 6 p.m., 6 a.m. So at night. Not awesome overall, but when you are doing experience run, to speed run the scoreboard and get those level ups on the season pass as fast as possible, this is important. This free perception gives you extra experience. I think it's like 7-8% extra experience thanks to this card. So that's impactful. Only at night, so only 50% of the time, but it does work. So I would say it is useful. Relatively niche case scenario only for experience farming. So I'm putting it under B again. But when you need it, it's really even higher for experience farming. You can do it without it, but you are losing quite a bit of experience if you don't equip it and it's night. I would put it at A if not the fact that it works 50% of the time and not all the time. Number Cruncher. Super powerful. One of the latest additions. Direct damage to weapons based on AP cost. It's not VATS only. It's for every weapon, including melee and range. Based on the AP cost on the weapon. So if you have weapon for VATS with low AP cost, it's not so great. Like lowest AP cost, we are looking at 5%. I mean 10% as it's 5 AP cost, 10% bonus, which is not awesome. But some weapons cost 40 points to fire in VATS, and that's give them 80% bonus to damage. The bugs related to this card previously existing were addressed, so it should apply correctly to dot and explosion. Therefore, awesome card. Most weapons have AP cost between 10 and 20, so bonus is between 20 and 40%, quite significant, and it can be higher. It's S tier card for sure, as it works on everything. Heavy guns, small guns, bows, melee, doesn't matter what that is. Number Cruncher will help do more damage. Panoptictagraphist. You hear directional audio when in range of a magazine. If you're hunting those magazines, it is handy. Magazines are still needed, bubbleheads are still needed. So occasional use case, I would say. My main source personally of magazines is the raid, as they drop in the raid. So raid is better than hunting on the map. As magazines on the map has 20% chance to spawn at any point where they can spawn. So yeah, not so many usually. There are some farming routes that I covered in the past, and this perk definitely helps in that scenario. Not a must-have, as you can just remember where those magazines are, but handy. So I'm putting it as occasional use case C+. For Panapictographis. And Percepti-Bobble does the same exact thing, just for bubbleheads. So the same spot on the ranking, is why shouldn't it be in the same spot when it does exactly the same thing? Pick lock. There are 3 cards like that. Help you pick locks. Important, very early game. Later on, not so much. There is a legendary perk that can do that, or you can just ignore the locks. You need to have them equipped, so switching them in and out is cumbersome, as there is 3 of those: picklock, picklock expert, and master. So occasional and early game usage. After that, I would rather run a legendary card or ignore the locks. Therefore, it is edge case scenario, mainly early game. All the picklock stuff is going under C tier, all of them in there. There is no other room for them. I will even put them underneath each other. That's the same thing. That's the problem with them. You need to have 3 cards in tandem to make it work and worth it, which is not great. Rad-Reaver. Dealing melee damage, provides a small amount of glow. 15 glow to be exact. I'm running it on my melee build, Feral Ghoul. Awesome for that. Gives you glow all the time when you swing at enemies. The glow that you get from this card is not affected by your radiation resistance. For the melee, Feral Ghoul build is absolute must-have. You don't need to worry about topping glow manually, and you do need to have continuous high glow to run Stagger Immunity perk, the Brick Wall for Ghouls under Strength. So yes, this is must-have for melee ghouls. Yeah, only for melee ghouls, as that's a ghoul card and for melee, but if you are a Feral Ghoul, you must have it, so that's S tier. Refractor, another perk card that has a curve to it. It gives you quite a bit of energy resistance, close to 100 at 30 perception, which makes it good. This is a really good card for tanks. Not really for damage, but for tanks. 100 energy resistance with high perception may be very handy. I'm tempted to give it 80, but there are such a good cards, much better than this one. So I'm giving it again B+. I'm giving more B+, just because of so many, so powerful cards that Perception has. We already have some, but there will be more. Scope weapons have 50% more range when aiming. So that's similar card to the one that we already covered, to the long shot. Cost a little bit more. The value is higher. Basically the same thing for the most part. So it deserves the same ranking. That does the same thing. So why would you give it different ranking? It's going under B. Skid Shooter. Your small guns have 45% better accuracy and spread. It's handy. It's handy to have, but there are better cards that gives you accuracy and reload. For example, Ground Pounder, that small guns do. It's more expensive, but gives you more stuff. This is a nice filler card, to be honest, in my opinion, especially for manual aiming. But I'm personally usually not using it. I am not even sure if it always works as intended. I'm not sure about that. Sometimes I try to use it and it wasn't giving me an improvement. It's small guns only, worth to mention, so no, you cannot use it with your Peppa Shaker, which would benefit with this card if that would work on it, but it will not. It's small guns only. In my opinion, small guns have so many better cards and so many cards that can improve the accuracy as well. Even the scoped up and log shot are more useful than just a skid shooter. I don't know what I should really do with it. You may disagree with me, but I am putting it under a C+, so there is a use case. Sometimes it looks like a very good card, but it's more like a filler card when you don't really have anything great to put. Smart Shot. Deal 25% weak spot damage while aiming a scoped weapon. Seems like a niche case scenario, and value seems like decent, but not great. In reality, it is S-tier card, incredible powerhouse, because that 25% it's as a weak spot damage multiplier. So that's huge increase to your DPS. If you can put scope on a weapon, if you have a weapon that can have a scope, in reality, what does it mean? It means that when you can aim at the weak spot with Smart Shot equipped and you have a scope, your damage and DPS will be higher than running the same weapon in VATS with criticals. So look how many perks VATS related you could skip and do superior DPS with this one card. So yes, this is solid S tier. It absolutely deserves it. Huge card. Huge card, especially for Guardian farms. You're gonna see me using that with Enclave Plasma Gun. Powerhouse. Sniper. Gain improved control and hold your breath 75% longer while aiming scopes. Cool, quite cool, but if you really want to be a sniper, you don't use a sniper perk. If you want to be a sniper, what you do, you put a stabilized mod on your arms in your armor, which gives you perfect gun stability without the need of holding your breath. So you don't need to press any extra buttons. Therefore, the real sniper will not need it. Someone who occasionally snipe it will not equip it. Therefore, this card, unfortunately, goes to the bin category. Not to be used unless something changes in the future. Tormentor. You deal 20% more damage per crippled limb your target has. Especially important in the boss fights. In most boss fights, quickly. Enemies will be crippled with multiple limbs crippled, like the bosses, Scourgebeast Queen, or so on. How many limbs they do have, what count? Let's take Scourgebeast Queen for example. Fully crippled, you will get huge bonus because there is head, torso, left wing, right wing, left leg, right leg. That's 6 limbs. Quick math, 120% damage bonus when those limbs are crippled. For all your weapons, including melee, for everyone. So yes, another card that is S tier, especially for boss fights. For regular enemies, not as important, as a lot of regular enemies you can kill before you can get any benefit from crippling them. But that's for trash mobs scenario. In case of trash mobs, nothing really matters, as they will just die. Therefore, Tormentor is S tier. And this way we get to last one, Tank Killer. Your range weapons ignore 40% armor. Used to be weaker in the past, greatly buffed. Look at the cost, only 2 points. And 40% armor penetration for all range weapons, no exceptions. Therefore, it is a strong S tier. All heavy guns, launchers, pistols, rifles will benefit with that. The bows will not. The bows have its separate category. They do not count as range weapons. They count as its own survival weapons. So bows are different, but they have its own card. This is absolute S tier. And you don't know it, but I stopped the recording for quite a bit and I was raging here on my side because somehow I failed to copy one row of my perk cards to this tier list. So I mess up my alphabetical order as I just realize it and I'm going back. And we are on B again. How I did it, I don't know. My apologies, but anyway, continuing, breathe it in. A good specific perk that reduces the radiation resistance, which help with environmental radiation intake on the ghoul. In this moment, almost never used. The reduction is up to 150 and cannot go below 0. Most armor pieces provide more, and if you cannot kick it down to 0, it's pointless to use it. In other cases, toxic goo is not affected anyway. Radiation from perks is not affected anyway. Environmental intake is not the main way to get glow, so it's not really used much. Edge case scenario when you can use it, I was trying to use it much more. It was a little bit more important in the past, but things has changed. It's C minus, I would say, barely avoiding F. Next is Butcher's Bounty. 80% chance to find extra meat from animal corpses. It used to be awesome for carnivores. At this moment, it's only really being used a lot for farming Scourgebee's brains, for extra intelligence and therefore experience farming. Outside of that, most of the good food buffs can be either purchased from a vendor or generated at your camp without a need to cook anything. So again, edge case scenario, unlike Green Thumb, which is still widely used by herbivores, as there is no good herbivore buff generators, Butcher's Bounty is rarely used, and it costs 3 more points, so more swapping to do to equip it. Occasionally can be used for farming of the meat, so C tier. Santa Masochist. Here you are, how could I almost not include it? That's how I noticed something is wrong when I look at my S tier and there was no Santa Masochist. I was like, what's going on here? Where are cards? And that's how I noticed I skipped a row. Santa Masochist 75% range damage when attacking the torso. How much is that? A lot. Very important. And torso, they don't really mean torso, not only human enemies or so on. For example, the Guardian boss, first stage of the raid, when you attack it, the main part of the boss, entire main part of the turret, counts as torso for purposes of Santa Masochist. So basically, it's 75% extra damage for the main piece of the enemy, main body part, or however you will call it. As it is a weak spot in case of the Guardian, therefore it doesn't collide with weak spot rules. It does apply to it. It adds extra damage. So absolute S tier. For other enemies, Torso has usually the highest VATS hit chance, so you can almost always hit it. So Santa Masochist S tier. Does not work on explosions, that's worth to mention. If you are running launchers or rely on explosions, this perk will not help you. Concentrated Fire. This one is really good. Focus fire to gain 3% accuracy and damage per shot. That's for automatic weapons. The values are a little bit higher, at least supposed to be, for single shot weapons. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not, depend if it's currently backed or unbacked, but it's supposed to be much higher for single shot weapons. It should be 12% for them. And it does stack up to 20 times. So after 20 shots, you will get 60% VATS accuracy and damage. Therefore, yes, for VATS, absolute S tier. For this one, boss fights and even regular enemies, improving VATS hit chance. And the VATS hit chance improvement is to the base. It's not like awareness. It's to the base. So we can go from 0% VATS hit chance to 60% VATS hit chance with Concentrated Fire alone. But awareness and other perks improving VATS accuracy will add up on top and multiply this effect. So, for example, Snake Fight, you can get over 80% hit chance for the eye and you are starting from 0. Crack Shot. Small guns have 30% more range and 30% more accuracy when aiming down sights. Very rarely anyone does that to utilize this perk, but it can be a scenario when you want to run it. 30% range and accuracy is decent. If you are gunslinger, you like Western style, Western revolvers or so on, why not? You can use it, but it's edge case scenario, I would say. Maybe a little bit more than edge case scenario. I would give it B-. Those revolvers can use it. Deal Scylla. 10% damage for each impairment your target has. What are those impairments? Target that is frozen, poisoned, bleeding, crippled. It all counts as impairment. Burning, and so on. Usually in the boss fight, the boss will have at least 5 different impairments, so that would be 50% bonus damage. How well it's working in practice, how often it kicks in, how badly it's affected by server stability. It used to be very bad, but a lot of bugs have been fixed, so it's supposed to work better. But I'm still reluctant to give S tier to perk that heavily rely on servers willing to display those affections on the enemy, all those impairments. They need to be under the health bar, and they're not always there. So it's still useful and strong because it costs just 2 points, but I'm giving it A and not S tier unless it will be confirmed that it always works and gives a full bonus. So then it would be different scenario. Next, Downranger. 20% range damage to far enemies. What is a far enemy? In-game far enemy is enemy that is at least 60 TD or farther away from you. 60 TD, it's really not so far, therefore works almost always. There's one problem with this card, the cost. It's 3 points and competing with all those S tier cards already under perception. So unfortunately not used as often as it costs too much. 20% damage would be reasonable if that would be cost of 1, maybe 2, but not 3. 3 it's too expensive. So it's not like the card is bad overall, the value is too small. Therefore I'm putting it down to rarely be used in C tier. Just the value is too small to justify using it when you can get more. You can use Number Cruncher, it will work better, and no range requirement at all. Exterminator. Your attacks ignore 75% armor of any insect, including Mollusks. But yeah, that's still a very small group of enemies, and we already have sufficient armor penetration from Tankilla alone. Therefore, insects are not even heavily armored. The difference between, even when you are fighting an insect, like maybe cricket, difference between having Exterminator with Tankilla or having only Tankilla in regards to damage on almost any weapon, with maybe exception of fast-firing weapons with super low damage. But why would you use them if they have no damage per shot? So, in most case scenario, the difference will be 0. There'll be no difference at all. You will do exactly the same damage with Exterminator equipped or not, as the math of armor penetration in Fallout is so that if you have enough damage to punch entire armor, adding more anti-armor does not improve it at all. So this perk is really not ever used, as there is no reason to use it at all. And now I have all of the perk cards, and this is a tier list for perception. So the reason that so many of them I put lower, just because how much from S tier you should incorporate. Like quick math, Number Cruncher, that's 3 points. Then if you add Tormentor, that's 5. If you add Tankilla, that's already 7. You add Santa Masochist, you are at 10. Add Concentrated Fire, you are at 13. You have 2 spare to choose from all of that. And if you need bows, You are already short. You need to choose something else, as hat trick will not even fit. So yeah, that's the problem with perception. So many so powerful universal cards under S tier that all those other cards, you need to be careful, as you don't want to replace anything that's A or S tier. Yes, you need them. You don't want to replace them just because you want extra range on the weapon or a little tiny bit of damage from downranger. And that being said, do you agree with this list or disagree? Let me know, and see you in the next one.